Hey friends, welcome back to my channel, and I'm so excited to teach you the second lesson of our ultimate IELTS reading question types course, which is available on YouTube for free. And I'm making all of this for you guys. You can easily express your thank you as subscribing to my channel, liking the video, commenting, and sharing the video to your friends. So let's begin our second lesson. And our today's lesson is gonna be about yes, no, not given. If you haven't watched my previous lesson, I highly recommend to watch you first lesson, and then you can come back to the second lesson, because there are many strategies that can be applied for both true false not given and yes no not given. So many students ask me about what is the difference between true false not given and yes no not given. And my answer is true false not given questions are about the facts. Facts. And yes no not given questions are more about the writer's opinion. Yes, no, not given are about writer's opinion. You can easily apply all the strategies that I gave you in the first lesson to yes, no, not given questions as well. And the other thing that you do need to pay attention is that these questions are always in order. They're always in order. So if you, for example, there are three questions, 2 and 3, you found the answer for question number 1 and you know the specific location, and you also found the answer for question number 3 and you know the exact location, but you're struggling to find the specific location question number 2 is coming from, then that means that the location for question number 2 is going to be between the location of 1 and 3. It's going to be between those two answers. And the other difference between true, false, not given and yes, no, not given is that usually you have true, false, not given questions in passage 1 and passage 2, and you usually have yes, no, not given questions in passages 2 and 3. Usually in passage 3, but sometimes you might also uh, like have yes, no, not given questions in passage 2 as well. Passages 2 and 3, you're usually gonna have them. In my experience, I personally have not seen any yes, no, not given questions in passage 1. So now you know all of these strategies, and the other thing is like there is a question statement, for example, right? And you do need to turn that into questions so that it's going to be easy to find the answer. Uh, Quickly just summarize from lesson 1. Um, yes, you're going to choose yes if there is information about that. You're going to choose no if you can correct that statement based on the passage, or if that information if the information in the passage is contradicting the information in the question. You're going to choose not given when it might also be yes, it might also be no, but there's no sufficient information about that. Not enough information. Usually, the passage gives you some sort of reference to that specific part of the question, but it's not going to give the full info about that. Then you're going to choose not given. So you know all of these strategies, right? And now let's do some practice, okay? Here we have it, Australia's Lost Giants. We also need to read the subtitle because it might help us to understand what the passage is going to be about. What happened to Australia's megafauna, the giant animals that once existed across this enormous continent? So yeah, I understood that like we're gonna have passage about Australians megafauns and its lost giants, and like the passage is gonna be talking about what happened to those animals that once existed at that enormous continent. The next thing that I'm gonna do is reading the questions and highlighting keywords. So extinct megafauna should receive more attention than the extinction of dinosaurs. There are problems with like dinosaurs is an unchangeable keyword, so it's gonna be easy to find it. Megafauna is also unchangeable keyword. There are problems, okay, with Paul Martin's Blitzberg. Blitzberg is also unchangeable keyword, so it's gonna be easy to find the location of that question. With Paul Martin is also an unchangeable keyword. Paul Martin's Blitzkrieg hypothesis for the Americas. Okay. The Aborigines should have found a more effective way, should have found a more effective way to protest about Flannery's book. Flannery is also an unchangeable keyword. Aborigines is also an unchangeable keyword. There is sufficient evidence, okay, to support Tim Flannery's ideas about megafauna extinction. Okay. Well, now let's read the passage. Let's start reading the passage. In 1969, a fossil hunter named Rod Wells came to Navacoords in South Australia to explore what was then known as Victoria Cave. Wells claved through narrow passages and eventually into a huge chamber. Its floor of red soil was littered with strange objects. It took Wells a moment to realize what he was looking at, the bones of thousands of creatures that must have fallen through holes in the ground above and become trapped. Some of the oldest belonged to mammals far larger than any found today in Australia. They were the ancient Australian megafauna, huge animals of the Pleistocene epoch. In barnyards across the continent, scientists have found the fossils of a giant snake, a huge flightless bird, and a 7-foot kangaroo, to name but a few. Given how much ink has been spilled on the extension of dinosaurs, it's a wonder that even more hasn't been devoted to megafauna. So now we have a specific location. We found the location of question number 23. And what that says is that there is a lot of attention about the extinction of dinosaurs. But even more hasn't been dedicated to megafauna. So does that mean that, let's question, should extinct megafauna receive more attention than the extinction of the dinosaurs? What is the writer's opinion about that? Yes, right? Should extinct megafauna receive more attention than the dinosaurs? Yes, because there's been a lot of attention on the extinction of dinosaurs, but there has not been enough on the extinction of megafauna. So, yeah, turning into a question really helped me to know the answer. It really helped me. So, the answer for 23 is yes. Yes. Okay. Let's continue reading. Prehistoric humans never threw spears at uh, some sort of word here. I'm not gonna bother myself reading it because it's just a waste of time. But really, did hunt mammoths and mastodons. The disappearance of megafauna in America, mammoth, saber-toothed cats, giant sloths, among others, happened relatively soon after the arrival of human beings. About 13,000 years ago, in the 1960s, paleoecologist Paul Martin. So here we have Paul Martin, which is in question number 24. As you can see, Paul Martin we have here. Are there any problems? So developed what became known as the Blitzerg hypothesis. So here we have his hypothesis, which is named as Blitzerg, if I'm not mistaken hypothesis. Yeah. Modern humans, Martin says, created havoc as they spread through the Americas, wielding spears to annihilate animals that had never faced a technical predator. But this period of extinction wasn't comprehensive. North America kept its deer, black bears, and a small type of bison, and South America its jaguars and llamas. So there was a mention of Paul Martin's Blitzkrieg hypothesis for the Americas, but were there any? Have they talked about problems? No, right? There was not enough information. As I said before, it can also be yes, it can also be no, and we don't really know, right? There is nothing about problems, although there is a reference to Paul Martin, and even there is also a reference to Blitz, Blitzkrieg hypothesis. So the answer is not given. Not given. So, yep. Let's continue reading. Paragraph C. What happened to Australia's large animals is baffling. For years, scientists blamed the extinctions on climate change. Indeed, Australia has been drying out for over a million years, and the megafauna were faced with a continent where vegetation began to disappear. Australian paleontologist Tim Flannery, so now they started talking about Tim Flannery, suggests that people who arrived on the continent around 50,000 years ago used fire to hunt, which led to deforestation. Mhm. Here's what's certain, Flannery says. Something dramatic happened to Australia's dominant land creatures somewhere around 46,000 years ago, strikingly soon after the invasion of a tool wielding, highly intelligent predator. So, yep, what he suggests is that people like 50,000 years ago used fire to hunt. So, yeah, that was something that was certain. Let's go to a question uh, and look whether they have talked about it yet. The Aborigines, we don't have them yet, I guess. Yeah, let's continue then. In Flannery's 1994 book called The Future Eaters, he sets out his thesis that human beings are a new kind of animal on the planet and are in general one prone to ruining ecosystems. Flannery's book proved highly controversial. So Tim Flannery's book was so controversial to many people. Some view it as critical of the Aborigines who pride themselves on living in harmony with nature. There are Aborigines and they pride themselves on living in harmony with nature. And many people believed that it was critical to the Aborigines. But do we know that Aborigines wanted to find a way of rejecting his book? There's no information about that, right? Although there's a reference about Aborigines and their ideas is controversial, but is there anything about whether should the Aborigines have found a more effective way to protest about Flannery's book? Nothing about that, right? So the answer is not given. As you can see, there is reference to many parts of the question, but there are some sections where the passage does not say enough information. There's not sufficient evidence for saying yes or no. Yeah, let's continue. The more basic problem with Flannery's thesis is that there is no direct evidence that they killed any Australian megafauna. There is no direct evidence means there's not sufficient evidence, right? So let's go to the question. I guess it was about that. There is sufficient evidence to support Tim Flannery's ideas about megafauna extinction? No. This is exactly contradicting the information in the passage, because in the passage it says there is no direct evidence. No direct is opposite of sufficient. So the answer for 26 is no. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe to my channel.